Hello and welcome to this edition of the Choose Freedom Law Summit. It's funny, I want to say my own podcast. I'm so programmed for that. And we have our special guest, David-Jae-sonne-Giaramita. Am I saying your last name correctly, by the way?
That was absolutely perfect, sister. Kudos.
Amazing. I've
Gosh.
practiced it. I practiced it a lot. Yeah, that's great. And my wonderful co-host, Matt Belair, who has been an absolute pleasure and honor to work with during the summit. I've thoroughly enjoyed our efforts going into this, and so excited about the response that we've had so far. As of the recording time now, it's just 1 week since we launched, and there's more than 2,000 people already very engaged in the summit. So the interest is out there. You are not alone. If you feel like you are, if you're a little bit isolated in your world, and get on the Telegram group. There is an even more private forum now that we built, so that if you want to get into things that you're not comfortable sharing on a more public platform, then it's there for you as well. We invite all our speakers and guests to be part of it if they can. I know we're all slammed for a lot of responsibilities now. And I'll pass it over to David to introduce himself, unless, Matt, there's anything that you want to chime in with first.
No, this has been great. The response has been amazing, and it's just showing how important this knowledge is. And the only thing I'll share to people that are new to this, don't feel overwhelmed. The best you can. Just start diving in, and as you chip away, it gets clearer and clearer. But we're learning a lot about frameworks and perspectives to navigate this. And with each of these teachers, you have connection within the Telegram group, within the community to kind of dive deeper. So we have these master teachers that are at such a high level, which is really beautiful. And that's where we're going to get over maybe 6 months, a year or 2 years, so we can lead the way into freedom for ourselves and then everyone else, because we kind of forgot the past. So I'm just excited to dive in with David. He is a wealth of knowledge and very deep in etymology. So this is going to be a great episode.
Yeah, you were the one speaker, David, that I saw had expertise in that etymology. Everybody has some understanding, as you navigate through the legalese and everything. But the way you spoke it, when I heard it, it was like, that's poetic. That's reaching me. That's making me feel alive and awake to all of this stuff, and very, very interested. So that's what inspired me to reach out to you in the first place. And so, just to repeat, we are hearing from beginners that this is amazing for them to be able to just start out and be able to begin thinking about their God-given rights and who they actually are in the context of that. And we've also heard from people who've been doing this for years already that they're getting a lot out of it. So I promise you there will be something for everybody here. And on that note, David, would you like to properly introduce yourself and let our audience know your background and about your website?
Yes, by all means. Thank you very much. Bless you both, Beth and Matthew, even, for having me on. May I ask where you actually saw me then, with what regards to what you've just said? Where did you see me or hear me? Was it on another YouTube channel or on one of my presentations?
Yes, Rice TVX, I believe, is the full name of his channel. Was the first time that I saw you, and then I found your channel and went down your rabbit hole a little bit.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I did enjoy that, and we had a good chat. So I am here today speaking English, and I'll command the Oxford, editions and definitions. I may reference the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the KJV. But I'm not going to be interpreted, or anybody that thinks I'm going to give law advice. It's just a private chat for now, which you're going to air for the consideration of others. And we aim to try to educate. And with that, I'll show you how we originate what we do. I am kind of like the Bruce Lee of the law, science, philosophy, religion, and culture. I've learned from a great many, those names that I mentioned to you before. And continents, countless continents and men over the times, not so many women. I'm great to be in the presence of an Omega, because in the truth movement, there aren't too many, feminine forces in the church. They're ostracized in the, mosques. I don't believe they're allowed in. So females and the feminine energy, no offense, Matthew, but, there's a lot of males out there presenting and representing. So, it's good to I've asked the universe for more feminine energies, and it's working well for us, because we need an equal balance and representation. So yeah, thank you very much. Much love to you both equally. And I shall just give you a brief description then of who I am and what I do. I've got experience privately through trying to get access to my procreations, assets, young bloods in a high court scenario for a family breakup. And I had a barrister at the time, and I paid just £20,000 in over 2 years of time to go through that process to get a court writ to prove to arbiter, the banker, the judge, bench, bank, judge. It's the words, the language, the etymological references, Latin, the bench, and bank, and so forth. It's not really justice what's going off. It's more like business. And I didn't know now back then, I didn't know that I was having a baptism of fire that would lead me to this point. So back then, if I'd have known now what I knew, what I now know, then it would have been over in a couple of weeks and not thousands of pounds. Lawyers, legal counsel are designed in their game to drag things out unnecessarily and make us jump through the hoops. So my aim is to help others assert their rights. If you don't know your rights, one of the legal commercial maxims of law is those that fail to assert their rights have none. So even with you having a counsel, a solicitor, a barrister, an attorney, whatever continent you're on and position you're in, they are licensed to the bar guilds of some sort. The American bar, the London guilds ultimately own the London bar, run this show. So we help assert rights. I got into it for fathers and mums as well. We can help mums, but generally in England, when a family unit splits up, the mum takes the possessory title and dad is left to mediate with the mum in the private. If that mediation is to fail or the doors are closed for some reason, then you have to go see someone from the law society, a solicitor initially. And I've got the experience from that. And then later, after about a year of that fight, I've talked to my mum about the legal situation in the court and the language. My mum was at a university. She was a lecturer before she retired in Sheffield and then later Derby, and she left the university as one of the head lecturers for Derby law at the university itself. She did law there, and she wrote the curriculum for the lecturers by the time she was leaving. And she started out to assert women's rights for women, violence, domestic violence, and miscarriages of justice for minorities. She was in that for those reasons, and kind of a little bit followed in her footsteps. But when I asked her and I told her about the court and the scenarios and what was going off, she pointed out, the language legalese, it's not as it seems, David. It looks like English, it writes like English, it sounds like English, but it comes from Black's Law Dictionary, and it's a foreign language to English. And she explained about a legal personality, why they wear these wigs, that look like sheep's clothing, so to speak, if you want, lamb's wool on the head. And she explained, and I had my eyes opened. I thought that we was there, doing the same language, talking the same language, and for justice when it's business. There was no criminal aspect to it. It was an administration hearing for access rights, my property, and I was arguing title rights to get access to the property. So that's how I got into this. And then later on, I ended up looking at the legalese, looking at a dictionary. My mum gave me some publications of law to read, and she was, able to help me out. And I just took a liking to it. I was a DJ previously during that time of getting access, and before then I kind of escaped a little bit because it's a real big tribulation trying to get into that battle and carrying it on, and having to answer for yourself and jumping through the hoops legally, and with your solicitor leading up to a barrister later at the High Court. So I ended up collecting records and MP3s, and never been in prison, never done anything criminal, never harmed anybody, but I went off the rails a wee bit. And I've got a collector type mind. I've got a unique style, as we all are, unique to our individual characters. And I'm able to say that I swapped the vinyl records and the MP3 CDs, and I swapped them for the public records, case law, and because this is something near and dear to me, and even though I'd got access and a court writ to say that I was allowed to see my property, my procreations, my boys, my sons, the mum moved house. And when I went one day at Christmas time, December time, to drop off some presents, a big Polish man answered the door, and the mum had cleared off. And I rang the solicitor, says, what do we do? She says, oh, we need to go back to court. She's broke the court writ. And I went, no, that nearly killed me. So we'll decline, respectfully and politely decline your offer to recontract and start a battle. I tried to privately find out where the mum had gone and my boys, my sons, and I couldn't. And then it turned out, a dark period of my time there. I felt ostracized and alienated with it all. So again, I went back to Greece and places, and I had a good 5 years of, quite a dark time, giving up the fight. I felt like all that time and energy being wasted. And the system out there is a system that perpetuates, certain things, time and money, or our time and our money, and it doesn't. I don't understand it. I didn't like it, and I rang up a company that I was paying money to each week through my wages before I decided to skip the country and go to Zante Laganos, Zakynthos in Zante Laganos, and I asked this company who I was paying money to each week out my wages when I was a manager for a warehousing company. I had quite a good income and job position. And this company said, under the Data Protection Act, we're unable to tell you the details of your sons and where they are. Even though they had the information on the screen legally, they was restricted from telling me anything about, the details to my children, my sons. So I declined to contract with them furthermore, and I broke the contract with them. They threatened to take me to court, and I said, good on you. I pay the money. I should be able to see my sons. You won't tell me where they are. The mum's broke the court order. So here we are. It's a civil matter. It's not criminal. I'd learned a fair bit by then with my mum's help. So then I decided to escape for a bit. And then, you run away from your problems, but they always are there. They don't disappear because you've skipped country and you're drinking copious amounts of raki and DJing in a tourist nightclub area for a couple of years at a time. And when I came back to England, Anglo, I call it Anglo, to be fair, rather than England. But when I come back to home turf, I had to then address those problems. I couldn't let the fact that I didn't have access to my sons continue. And so I decided to learn more law. And then one thing leads to another. I'm sure you both know and are aware. One thing leads to another. You start discovering one area and you find something. You might open a dictionary. That leads to that. That leads to that. And before long, you've gone round in a massive circle. So I'll leave it there for now. And I hope that was a summarization that was appropriate.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful, it's so good to hear people's stories of origin and entry point, because story is really food for people that, because if you just came at us with a whole bunch of information to begin without any context of where you're coming from, it can definitely make it harder to digest. There's some kind of like a human experience that needs to happen first. I know the word human is very problematic. It's like they stole all our words. Now, when I talk, I have this like constant edit, and I can't call my son a kid anymore because that's a goat, and I can't call them children because that's a government designation of it being their property and their based on their birth certificate. So I'm very interested in how to talk about children in legal contexts. It's extremely relevant to us right now in Canada because the rights of parents, which actually haven't been there for a long time. It's already since 1995, for example, that they have told us that a child could be vaccinated without parental consent. 12 and older. So they told us that in 1995. Now, it wasn't really relevant, and it didn't come forward in culture, of course, until now, right? And we're looking at vaccine, all of a sudden there's vaccine passports that certain people are going to have the privilege of not quarantining. That's the first little step that our government has taken, and they've announced through every school board that these children can go behind their parents' back. They've even said if you have to lie to your parent, that's okay. That's part of the propaganda that's coming out right now, like insanity. And so, just in terms of talking about your children to, say, a principal, a school, a superintendent, school board, the government, do you need to censor your language and not say children, not say kids, not say child, and that kind of thing? What's your advice there, David?
I'm just giving you a thought. Great questions, and I'm glad you asked that. You picked up on my use of various terminology for my sons there, sons and daughters. But like I said at the beginning, for the purposes of clarity and the avoidance of doubt, we speak in command the Oxford editions and definitions. So we're not speaking legalese. We're not licensed to use legalese. It's part of the Law Society of the London corporate city and the Bar Guild. So I and Matthew are all speaking in English, if you like, common tongue. So human is HUE hyphen man, or HUE man, all one word, or HU man, or HU hyphen man. But it doesn't matter how you write it. Colour of man. There is a colour of law, Black's Law definitions, Black's Law dictionary where legalese is written. So there are Halsbury's laws and commentaries, and there is William Blackstone's laws and commentaries as well that have also, talked about this status. We can safely say humans. We use in our notices a notice at the top that says, for the purposes of clarity, avoidance of doubt, it's written in English. Do not convert it into legalese. We're not able to, use that, and we're not able to understand it. So if you point that out from the offset, from the beginning, you need an equal level playing field, and we will be using English and we will be commanding English in a legal domain, you see, because English looks like legalese, sounds like legalese, and writes like legalese. It just comes from the Oxford or the Cambridge dictionaries. You have American English, Canadian English, there's French English, certain types of English all around the realm, but it's basically the common tongue. There's a reason why the world has got the English as its first language, because we're taught English, but it's not really English. Because, for an example, when you're at school or the indoctrination camp, the academy, they tell you when you're little to write your name. You write your name, and I always used to write it lowercase David, and the teacher would tell me that was wrong because your name starts with a capital letter. Now, a capital letter is an indication of a noun. So David with a capital D is a noun, and a noun in the Oxford linguistics, grammar and styles denotes an object or a thing. I'm not an object and I'm not a thing. I am a sovereign, authentic man. I'm not a sovereign citizen, because that's an oxymoron. You are either private and lawful, or you are public and legal, and a person, a private lawful man or a public legal person. If you call yourself a sovereign citizen, you're saying I'm a private public, and you're joining up. That can't be done. You're mixing the oil and the water. So one is either private, and I will get down to the sovereignty breakdown in the etymological references and biblical references and legal commercial maxims references later. But it's just language separation is what we need to do, and we need to know who we are, when we are, what we are. Plato, Socrates, Aristotle have all done these. This is nothing new under the sun. Know thyself, know who you are, know what you are, in metaphorical, metaphysical and physical senses, corporeal, incorporeal. The church dictionary comes into play, the legal dictionary comes into play, the Latin dictionary comes into play, the English dictionary comes into play. So I use 4 main dictionaries there, and then we have the Holy Bible, which is the 5th dictionary. When I say the church dictionary, there's ecclesiastical laws and terminology and definitions. There's amongst all of that. So 4 to 5 dictionaries at a time, you will see an encounter within, legal apparatus. So as long as you are clear, you're speaking English. Like, people frowned at me for saying that I am we have a remedy for man. People are looking for a remedy for this legal surety and debt slavery that we're in, and there are live life claims and UCC claims and ecclesiastical deed poll, as Franco Collins created and brought out some time ago. I've created another remedy, which is called an evidence of life, essence, and incarnation, where I'll break it down later, but just so you can hear me out. And in that, I use private trust law, which is Abrahamic trust law, which is from the first book of Genesis, which is in here. The book of Genesis, which is the first book of Moses, which is written in here. That's an example of the first trust. The first private lawful, L-O-R-E, full trust, not L-A-W, land, air and water. That's totally different law. That's the Roman secular codes that from the canonization of the New World Testament. But from the Old Testament and Genesis, the first book of Moses, there's Adam and Eve, there's the Creator, or we say the Father, the one who cannot be named, I am. There is no name. Some people say Yeshua, Jehovah, Lord God Most High. Father is a good word to use. Adam and Eve and the Father, all is well. In the Garden of Eden, the Father says, I'm getting off for a bit. You two crack on naked, and remember, you do what you want. But when I come back, I don't want you touching that tree. It's the only place, the only thing, the only rule I'm giving you. Leave that tree alone. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, we'll say. Later on, Father comes back after some time. We all know the story, don't we? They're wearing a fig leaf. That fig leaf is put there for you to perhaps figure out figuratively as a figment of your imagination why that fig leaf is there. They've eaten from the tree of knowledge, of good and evil, and they've changed their mindset. Their consciousness has changed. Father knows straight away. So that trust was broken, which is why they were kicked out, as it's written, from the Garden of Eden for breaking the commandments of the Father. So when you have an agreement and you haven't made that agreement, you've been given it, then you see, then you broke that trust. They didn't make a contract. They were given orders and they agreed to them orders. Happen a snake turn up, coax Eve into eating that apple, the tree of, good and evil knowledge. Think of Apple technology, iPhone, iPad. There's an apple there because it's technology and knowledge. That's a little like, haha, to the Christians themselves there with regards to that iconography. So you've got to look at, when I talk about trusts, I know trusts, and I'm very well versed in trusts, and it isn't new trust technology. Trust technology is as old as the Old Testament itself. Then we come across ecclesiastical trust law, which is where the pyramid shape trusts are formed in a pyramid, where there's someone at the top that takes the king position. That would be the Creator, the Father, and he gave the earth to the beneficiaries, the Christians. I know not everybody's Christians. We've got three major Abrahamic faiths: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and that is the main three faiths of the world that are based on Abrahamic faith. So we have the triangle, we have Allah, we have the one that cannot be named, I am, at the top. We have the Christians as the beneficiary at the bottom there, and here we have the church as the trustees. So that's the old original trust that I'm talking about when I say private lawful trusts that we use. The church then have formed their own trust in that with the pontiffs and the Franciscan friars and so forth, and they've made ecclesiastical trusts supplementary to the Abrahamic trusts. Then we come to the City of London. They have legal trusts. Legal trusts, they have in legal trust, there's such thing as a bare trust. A bare trust is like a naked trust that Adam and Eve was in. It emulates, like I'll show you later with this discussion, how I can be a sovereign and not a citizen, and I can demonstrate with my chapters and verses that I've already got marked for you there, and some of the writings that I'd like to read for you to tell you about all of these areas of trust. So you got Abrahamic trust, you got ecclesiastical trust, you got legal trust, and then there's a trust here that Matthew and yourself and I have made, where we agreed to have a chat, be respectful, each one teach one, two-way street, and to be honourable. So that's the fourth area, which doesn't involve a court. It didn't involve any seals. It didn't involve any judges, but we set a trust up. We've executed it well. Your viewers are the beneficiaries. You and Matthew are the beneficiaries. I am now at the minute the settlor or the grantor. I'm granting and giving information for the benefit of your viewers, your channel, your network, and for the good of mankind, for the good of all. So if it was the other way around, you would be the grantor or the settlor, as it is known primarily, Settlor is the main one to use rather than grantor. Grantor's normally to do with money and finance. A grant, you're given a grant, finance granted. But settlor, beneficiary and trustee are the three main positions there. And there's many types of trust. You've got to remember it's jurisdiction, jurisdiction, jurisdiction. And when you can separate the levels of law and navigate your way through them, then you can speak and do things in a remarkable way. And there are various passages. The Bible is not meant, in my opinion, to be read literally. The literalists have a problem with me and my works and what's in our educational foundational trust of SPLS Pro, because when you take away somebody's own personal Jesus, there's a track by Depeche Mode, you may or may not be familiar, you're of the demographic of which I think you may know, your own personal Jesus. I'm not going to do it all, but someone who hears your prayers, someone who's there, someone who cares. Man has a relationship with Jesus, and when we sit here praying for the problems of our lives to be taken away by Jesus, because we can't do it ourselves, or we're unwilling to do it ourselves, or we're waiting for the Messiah to come down. Well, he was allegedly expected to come back on the 6th of June, 1666, and he didn't appear. So what happened was another Seta KV was written, 1540 Seta KV, followed by the 1666 Seta KV, some people say. I say Seta KV, and then the 1707 Seta KV. So when I take away people's relationship with Jesus, and I put what we do is we put you there. You are the one to save yourself. You are the image of the Creator. You have the Godhead within to go to Mesoamerica, Aztec, Incas, and such people like that. They knew this. Many older civilizations knew the secrets of what we are now rediscovering. Nothing new under the sun, and I haven't come here to take anything away from any Christians, but what we do is we prove with the New Testament, the Old Testament, the New Testament, what the good news is from the gospel. The good news is that you are in the Creator. We are all gods in the image of gods, and we have the power to be very powerful humans, because it's a journey, it's an expansion, it's a consciousness development. And if it's done correctly and honorably as one family, where we all get our pieces and put them on the table, we have a respectful, honorable chat, and I've taken a lot of criticism. I've put myself out to be crucified for what I say and do, but I can back up everything that I say given the time. And if you want me to come back and take questions later, it can be done, and I will articulate and reference everything that is written in that. And it is written in the maxims of law, the 10 commercial maxims, axioms, and precepts of American, Canadian, Australian, and English. All Commonwealth states operate on this. All courts recognize equity. They may not all have permissions and rights to deal with that, but we can move to ones that can, which are the Supreme Courts. England has Supreme Courts. America has Supreme Courts. We've all got the Supreme Courts to use. We've got the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we've got the European Courts of Human Rights that are independently managed. And we've also got the United Nations. Have we? Yes, we have. Believe it or not, I will tell you that you can consider the United Nations treaties, because England, America, China, France, and so forth, there's 5 permanent nations that are on the Security Council. And guess what? The United Kingdom is one of them. So if the United Kingdom is on the United Nations Security Council as one of the 5 member nation states, then when I call in upon everything that I'm going to give you tonight in a roundabout way, I appreciate it's a bit, but still, it needs saying. If I call upon the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article number 6, and I say in my paperwork that will precede man, that I am afforded, all humans are afforded the right to be recognized in front of the law as a person. Well, God is no respecter of persons. It's written many places, and I've got the references for that, later on. Why is God no respecter of persons? Because God made man, Father made man, and man made government, and government made persons. So if there wasn't a way out, this remedy that we're all looking for with the secure party creditor, live life claim, UCC filings, and Nasara Jasara, and all this hokum that's going around, what we need to recognize is that persons are for us to use, and you should not go or be known to be a legal public person. SPLS Pro is an expert in restoring you your rights, they're not taken away, you just need to know how to voice them. Those that fail to assert their rights have none at law. That's a rule and a maxim, which I can prove to you later, or if you want to search independently the 10 legal commercial maxims of law, you will find them. Okay, there are equitable maxims that supplement that, that override that, which is why equity comes whenever a trust is formed. Equity is the governance that comes with trust law. So if we go back to amongst everything that I've said, and I realize it's a bit complicated and very controversial, I'm keeping it simple, and I'm not giving too much at once. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights affords all humans the right to be recognized as a person in front of the law. Okay then, well, I respectfully and politely declined the right to be recognized as a human here today in the court in a legal public capacity. I will implement the instrumentation that is given to me. He who takes the Father's name, they, sorry, sister, it's the way it's written. It's always written he and man, but they that take the Father's name in vain will not be delivered. What is your name? I've just told you. A name is it begins with a capital letter, and it's a noun, it's an object or a thing. How can I, David, son of the Creator, be a name? I can't be. But if you volunteer your name and you willingly give your name, then you've done that. You've made that decision. It doesn't matter that you wasn't educated enough to know the difference in what you're doing. I have a calling. I am called David. I am sometimes known to go by a name when it is a benefit to me. So where is Mr. David-Jae-sonne-Giaramita? I demand to see him, so we get down that bit later on. So you see why we do this, because a name is how the court will get the jurisdiction. They have the venue jurisdiction, which is the property. Yes, they have the jurisdiction of its spiritual nature, which is the 1302 unum sanctum, the bulla papilla that you may have been aware of in your research. If not, we'll expand on that later. And now they want the personal jurisdiction. The personal jurisdiction is what? Is the person. And what is a person? It's a name, an object, a thing, or a noun, and it's known to the Crown at the point of registration. So when you, with your own free volition, give a name out, then you've said you're a name. So now the court's got all the three jurisdiction it needs to salvage you under the Roman doctrine of discovery and salvage you as a name. So it's very important to say, I am not a person. I have a person. We go Latin now. As I mentioned, the dictionaries we use. Person is not English, Anglo-English. It's not Oxford English. It's not American English. It's not Canadian English. It comes from Latin, personam, persona. It was a mask that they used to wear when they performed in Rome, in places, generally Rome, and they used to wear the mask, and it had pursed lips on the mask that would push the sonar, the sonics through the mask, so the ones at the back end of the audience or wherever they were playing there, the play, wherever it was being cast, could hear the voice and the sonic. So persona was initially for a mask, and if you look in the Latin dictionary, you will find that person is persona and persona is mask, to put on the mask. So we don't wear the mask anymore. We take that mask off and we separate many things, and we're aware, and we can, like I say, I can reference and articulate and give you all of the publications, chapters and verses, scriptures, and also going back to the original Hebraic text, which is phonetic text, these paradigms and how these 2,000 years have allowed the current, what would we call them then, occupation, occupiers, militia, boat people, rowmans. When we talk about boat people and partnership and leadership, you're a rowing a boat and you're a rowman. The Romans obviously are known for many good things, but they're also known for their law system, their civil law system, the criminal law system. And since 1066, on this Anglo landmass, William the Conqueror couldn't battle down the corporate city of London. So in 1067, they did a deal. And ever since then, they've been ensconced on London City, own postcode, its own police, its own jurisdiction. Queen Elizabeth II has to knock and ask for permission if she wants to go in there. I can wander in there anytime I want, but the Queen, she's not allowed in. Why is that? Well, It's a foreign jurisdiction. Washington, D.C. is a foreign jurisdiction to the Americas. Why? Because that's where the second obelisk is, or the third, if you want. London's got the second because we owned America with Christopher Columbus and the colonization of those, the murder, the massacre of those indigenes to colonize that with Christopher Christ and Columbus, the dove. The dove represents the Holy Spirit. So I don't get into that now, but Washington, D.C. is separate to America. London City, inner London, has a Lord Mayor. London Town has the Mayor of London. There are two mayors in London, and London City is in London Town. Then you've got the Vatican in Basilica in Italy, in Vatican City, and he's got the obelisk there, which is the part of the tripart, establishment where the papacy, the see of papacy, the paparazzi, newspaper, paparazzi is the sea of paper rats. That's why the newspapers have no respect. So I'm on a tangent. I'm going to breathe and yield and let you reflect.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't love this more. There's something so beautiful about it when you start to pull the language apart like that, I hope everybody is kind of staying with us. I know that a brand new beginner might feel a little bit lost in this right now, but I promise you that it all makes perfect sense. I'm taking incredible notes here also. Matt, do you have anything that you want to jump in with at this point of question, or else I can...
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
that was definitely a lot to take in right off the bat, but I feel like first the story of the origin. A lot of people get into law because something unlawful is happening. You're getting pulled into a business administration, and you have no choice but to try to figure out what's going on because it's not what you thought it was. So I think that that's important. And then I think what he's talking about is like the inner workings and how this all has come about. And again, it's kind of seeing behind the curtain to what's going on. And so the question that I wanted to ask, because we can go down a lot of different rabbit holes, what is one to do? Like, you've got the 5 law dictionaries, right? And so if I'm going to be pursuing this and understanding how to, some people say, correct your status or be on the land or know how to invoke my rights or retain my rights, what is that path? Like, how do you begin to teach people and walk them down that path? So if they're listening and they're saying, okay, I kind of get the structure and I know that there's a way for me to do this, but it can seem a bit overwhelming because 1 dictionary is enough. Now we're talking about 5, and now we're talking about I'm going over here, and then they're speaking a different language. Yeah. What's going on there? And then, it's interesting you're talking about trust law, because I'm curious too, a good reference to learn that, because Dean Clifford will talk a lot about trust law when he would go into courts, and that's what he would stick to, and he would have all of his successes in understanding that and where the legal person is and the roles in the court. And that's the most important thing. And also then there's the court tricks and what they do and what people have tried in Canada. Then they're like, oh, you're not a person, are you? Who do you think you are? And then they give you like a psych evaluation. So there's all these different things where it does require, you have to have competence. The analogy that I've been giving to people is like kind of like fighting, where like you could be aware that you'd have to go to court and like fist fight, you know what I mean? Like an MMA battle. And, a jab isn't going to work 100% of the time, or a takedown's not going to work 100% of the time. But when you use the Bruce Lee analogy, it's taking the accountability of learning all of these different things, so then you can, know who you are under God. And then what's the best way to say it? Retain your rights, or know your rights, so that you can move and stay out of their system. And so the question I would ask is just, what's the path that people begin to walk? How do you break down all of the things that and begin walking down a path so they can feel confident in what they're doing?
Luckily, there is some publications we give away for free. So we've got a Sovereign Masters Guild. When I'm not trying to get traffic to the foundation educational trust that we have, but there is a way in that way. There are others. You can go anywhere you want to find out. But if you're serious, then you can come to our public Telegram group. You can have a chat with us initially on there. We have a private Telegram chat, which is exclusive for the supporters of SPLS Pro. We ask for 12 promises, 12 credits. So many dollars then. I don't know what that would be euros wise and dollars, but around $15, $17, 17 euros, 12 pounds to come in. And then we give you a last will and testament, and we give you the Sovereign Masters Guild publications that we've done. So everything that I've done and said to you now is written down in documents for you to get for free or within the domain. We have a Facebook, the private domain, the library. We have a literature library and a resource vault for you to utilize at your leisure. We have a public Facebook trust. So what I do is I come with clean hands. All the family is included, all religions, all creeds, all sexes, all continents, and there's a way for everybody to get on and come and test it if you want to test the capabilities, the substance over the form. So in response to that question, Matthew, you can download from Facebook for free, and anybody can access that and make an account. You can come to our Telegram group. I'll give you the links later, Beth, if that's all right, and you can provide them. So if people are like, where do I go? Hold up, we can sort that out and make sure you get the links, and then you put them alongside for yourself, Matthew, and whoever else is wanting to have a look. Then you look and you study them and you read through. What I do with digital documents, because they're digital, I scan them with keyboard Control and F, and I put in keywords: trust, equity, Jesus, Bible, trustee, beneficiary, settlor, grantor, charge, discharge. You need to, everyone's on a different path as well, Matthew, in relation to what you've just said. Some people are looking for a pot of gold. Some people are looking for untold wealth. The true wealth and the true reason I'm here is to protect the blood, the little ones, the procreations, the sons and daughters, and mums and dads' rights, for assertion of rights. So we're here to move from public legal person, and we're going to go to the private lawful man. And that is a correction of status, standing, and capacity. Man's paperwork will precede him. You have officers, executives, generals within this war, within this militia, not just the reverend captains of the church. Captain, a reverend and a captain should never be mixed together. That's an oxymoronic statement in itself, because you're a reverend of the church, but you're a captain in the army. The age of majority needs to be attained, and we get that at 21 generally here on Anglo soil, terra firma. You get a card given to you, which is a key to the door. You've got a key to your biological estate, and you need to manage your physical estates as well, your family, your blood, and also your rights, how to assert, evoke, or reserve, retention of rights is what we teach. You haven't had your rights taken away from you. You just need to know how to exercise the rights, like the demon is exercised. Again, you have full possession of your rights. Possession, you get possessed by a spirit. You could get possessed by the Holy Spirit. You could get possessed by a demonic. There's lots of words I'm just trying to point out that are used in this game, this mix up of things. So we give you the documents and the references to a lot of what I've said right there at the beginning. And you can read that, and you can go elsewhere and double check it. You can go on to YouTube, and you can go on and get your own dictionaries. We provide dictionaries and stuff like that in the private educational trust, where you can look for them yourself. Many of whom I meet already have dictionaries from various online media outlets, or have downloaded them and have them in PDFs, and many are already up to speed with what we do. But we're not here to be a secure party creditor. We do discharge charges, but we're not after pots of gold. I must let that be said. We're not after, certain things, TDA, Treasury Direct accounts, or in America and across the pond, it's Federal Reserve routing accounts and so forth. They may exist. They probably do. We're all bankrupt and insolvent, and, there's only promises. Everything's debt. We know that, and we can prove that later down the line. The 14th Amendment attaches all persons to the national debt. So, the reason why we don't want to be part of persons, citizens of the United States, is a civilly dead entity operating as a co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust. the constructive Seta KV Trust of the US, as well as England, but I'll say for the US, because we're across waters in Canada and other territories, under the 14th Amendment, which will uphold the debt of the USA. The congressional records show this. So persons, and the reasons why you may not want to be a person, and you might want to go back and find the Creator, God, Allah, Yeshua, the one with no name, or the name that cannot be said. We can teach you. We're happy to teach you. We can have myself back. I can give you publications. You can get them for free, and you don't need to do all the work what we've done. We can hold your hand, because we're only as fast as the slowest learner in the room or in the family. So we get together as a unit, and we pool our resources, and we put all the pieces on the table, and we have a chat, and we take open questions. There's hardly any legal situation that we don't have a lawful remedy for. And if you're talking about a courtroom and a court scenario, then this is a difficult one, but not for me to answer, but for the ones out there, because you either go to the court and you get rinsed. When I say rinsed, you get taken for a ride, because you may take legal counsel with you, and there's two parties that go in, and two parties have legal counsel, and one of them will lose. So having legal counsel doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win. You pay a lot of money for it. You might get away with it. You might find a loophole. But if you're guilty of a crime, you need to pay for that crime. You need to make amends. There's no getting out of that. But if it's a civil issue, then yes, there's a way to apportion the liability and the charges correctly, and that's with truth. And in commerce, the truth is sovereign. An affidavit will do you well. Learning certain things, what we can give you, the masters will give you. We're not higher than anybody. We're all equal. But what I'm saying is we have mastered quite a few areas, and we are able to provide our advanced knowledge, learning, publications, key skills and attributes. We call it a sacred contract, because I'm being judged every moment of every day. Even though I'm not in a physical courtroom of a Roman stature, I'm in the courtroom of the world. So we will give you all of the information, and we'll take questions about that. But you go to court and you self-present, you see, then you're not viewed as an infant. You're not viewed as, there's certain ways that the court look upon man when you go with a counsel and you going in maybe in probate and intestacy. There are certain legal words that they put in there. If you can't control that courtroom, you're going to be in trouble. If you can't limit the judge's discretion, you're going to be in trouble. We can train you in some ways. We can educate, is what we like to call it, and get you up to speed, because it's not, people have made this too complicated and too difficult than what it needs to be. There's a basic set of rules, axioms, maxims that govern the conduct of the court and the judge. There are basic, that's the basic information before leaving Earth, and there's a lot in there that I can reference about the sovereignty and the chapters of what I've got. I'll mention some before we finish, but it's not that difficult when you get to know the basics, the architecture that governs law. In a civil matter, the police can't get involved in England because it's civil. So we sort this out privately. Paperwork precedes you, and having a last will and testament, having powers of attorney, having some knowledge of what language you're speaking and what they're speaking, and setting things out. We can limit the justice's discretion. We can even correct the statutory constructive public trust of that the court has. The court is basically a boat on dry land, a vessel in dry dock. It looks a bit like a Protestant church layout. They wear black. They have Black's Law Dictionary. It's a simple ecclesiastical legal setup that's running. Perhaps there's some UCC in there as well, the Uniform Commercial Code. So maybe there's Admiralty Maritime, Ecclesia, UCC, so there's a lot going off, and there are at lower levels that you can reach. So implementing the instrumentation with the person, holding them to account, making the judge the trustee. These are all to correct a trust, you don't need much paperwork. You can verbally express the correct titles, and that will dissolve the public constructed trust. One of their legal maxims: he who leaves the battlefield first loses the battle. You know, things like this. There are basic simplicities that what we've done over time is we've listened to all these thought leaders and we've gone to all these publications, and then we've remembered all of this technical stuff, and we've got absorbed in it, and we've forgotten the basics. And what we're masters at doing is including that later if need be. But often we'll find that before we get into the court and the argument and what you're saying and how to discharge the charges in a civil matter, there often isn't any validity to their claims or charges. And what we're specialists at doing is, let me put it another way. When somebody makes a claim on you, their rules say the claimant has got the burden of proof. They are required to provide the material facts of the matter. So if somebody makes a claim, they're obviously got evidence against you and they think they're right. So what we've learned to do is go back to basics and say, you've made a claim. When somebody makes a claim, you can accept it and you can pay the price. You can say no, and you can face the controversies. And that's all we ever knew. But now there's a third option. There's been a third option for a while. It's just that we re-educate that, and that's to conditionally accept the charges. When you conditionally accept the charges of the claimant, you accept them with conditions that they provide proof of authority, proof of claim. What we get them what we do is we get them in a position of dishonor, the unclean hands. When they are in a position where they've defaulted, they've made a fault and they're in a default position, then you will win 100%. I swear on my soul, you will win. You get your claimant into a default position using their own rules, maxims, regulations, a little bit of that, you know, from if you should so choose. It's not necessary, but it's a Christian nation. When you go to court, they make you swear on the holy, authorized King James Crown Copyright Bible. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why. And as I said, I'm not here to preach Christianity, but in a nation where you have the Holy Bible, every president that started a war did it with one of them in his hands, just about. Do you know what I mean? It's a key, it's a pathway, which is why we say to the literalists, we don't mean to offend you, but it's a great story. It's called the world's greatest story. Jesus was a character in there, you know, and I'll get into that. I'll show you my revelations about that later on. So the reasons that we've got all of these teachings is because you need to know what your options are. You need to know how to limit the judge's discretion. You need to know the rules to the game. You know, you're going to a court, a game is played on a court. You often don't have a case to answer if you've done all your paperwork correctly in the private and you've conditionally accepted the charges. And if it's finance in England, UK, should I say, we put the account into serious dispute and we accept the charges and claims on a conditional basis, and we put it into serious dispute using the Office of Financial, Office of, let me think now, OFT, Office of Fair Trading and the Financial Conduct Authority, and require from the company, we do a general data subject access request, so a DSAR, data subject access request, and we use the GDPR, the General Data Protection Rules, which are internationally governed. Ministers in government and agencies for ministers that have appointed the agencies are governable under the ministerial code. Again, the ministerial code is not done by common law. It's not done by constitution. It's not done by Magna Carta, regulated, managed. It's done by the ratified treaties and covenants, political, social, religious covenants from the United Nations and the European Courts of Human Rights. So we call upon all of this and we put it onto the claimant and we say, come on then, show us the goods. And if they choose to ignore, we've even got an answer for that. They say silence is deemed as consent, do they not? Silence is deemed as acquiescence. It's called agreement. It's a tacit acquiescence by procurement. We set terms and conditions and letters out, and the claimant is in a default position. Therefore, we can look at discharging the charges because the judiciary will not want to hear, and they're not always high courts. They're civil, administrative, county, and magistrates. Magi comes from the ones that followed the star, the magi, the magicians, the magi, the etymological roots reference of magi, and magi straits, mini star, moon star, you know, it goes Westminster, these words and the etymological references are thousands of years old, and it's an old custom just so we can get back on track with the etymological references. So there are processes of which we know that we can help you understand, and every country has them. Every country just about that is civilized and has a central bank has the human rights, and you can call upon them, as I pointed out with the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Humans are given persons. There's a reason for that. You can choose to be a person, or you can choose to present your person and remain as the private, lawful, sovereign, authentic, we'll say, creditor, and you can present a debtor, which is the surname, all capital. So there's not that much doubt in our minds, no matter what landmass you're on, that there is a very easy, simple, lawful remedy for you to use. In using human rights, United Nations, trust technology, and Abrahamic law, we've pretty much locked it off. There's no escape for them. And if you can get them into default, then that's it. Your paperwork will precede you. If you ignore something until the door knocks and the heavy mob are here, then you've left it. That's not quite how it needs to be done. But there are times when people do that, and we still have managed to turn it around for them. But it's very hard. You need to try to keep abreast of all of get your house in order, estate administration, and use the government, use the secretaries, use the generals, use the Home Office, let them know, and appoint them as trustee. When you appoint someone in government as a trustee, they're governable under the ministerial code because they're ministers. Over here, I'm speaking now, I'll have to explain later about other continents. So the force, the police force, the state troopers, as it would be called across there, the force of law, the police force, are governed by the rule of law. The rule of law is governed by the ministers in office, the executives, the trustees, and they're governed by the ministerial code. That's governed internationally. So long gone as the common law, the Magna Carta, and the constitutional arguments. We've got backup, I'm happy to say, and it works rather well.
Wow, that's amazing. So much incredible information coming down the pipe here. I would love to back up to a basic concept that, just in case people don't know and aren't aware, when you talk about the distinction between, like, first of all, when you did something wrong, this we're not using this system to get out of our responsibilities and having to redeem and make amends and pay for the wrongs that are done, and the distinction between civil and criminal, because I think that is a huge crux of right now, the power and force that's being used, and no power, but the force that's being used against us is all based on this civil, where there's no crime. So would you mind to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, to be a crime, there needs to be a victim. And if there is no victim, then it's a civil matter. So civil matters are administrative civil matters. So they're in a different jurisdiction. So in England, United Kingdom, it's UK, public, and it's civil. That's all for the UK. For England and Wales, you have criminal. And you have sometimes, it will be going to the higher courts rather than the lower administrative courts. So there are administrative courts in effect here, and they are for civil issues. So we separate. We don't. SPLS Pro and myself, I'm just got to say, we don't deal with criminals. We're not criminals. I and my Father are one. And we do the Lord's work, the good work, and we save the assets. We can look at retainment of rights, titles, properties and rights. They call them goods. Goods go to market. We don't have goods. We have possessions, private property, but private property and certain things are in a civil status, a civil position, liable to be attacked. But assets that are protected as a private res, a trust and a res, would be locked off, and the title rights, you don't own that. So you can't take something that I don't own because I'm only the beneficiary to it. So we look at moving houses and property and the title rights associated with them into a private position. And that would be in private lawful trust. A last will and testament is a form of a trust where you can protect property. So there are various means when we look at law, we look at crimes, like another oxymoron, a criminal offence. No, I'm sorry. If it's a crime or it's an offence, what this London system, the Crown, what the Crown does is it makes civil matters into criminal matters, but there is no victim. So what they do is they say QE2 is the victim, the Queen is the victim, the state is the victim, but that's just administrative, hokum, as you would say. It's not true. We discharge the charges. So it comes into electricity. When I talk about boat people and water and things like that, charges, you've got discharge charges, batteries are charged, you get charged with regards to civil issues. When man has a heart arrest means to stop. When you're arrested by a trooper, you're stopped going about your business. When you was to have a heart attack, you have a heart arrest, medically it's known, and they come with the paddles, and they put the paddles on your chest, and they put the spark through the chest, and they charge you back to life. Because the dead, and debt are very similar words. You can put debt and dead in the same basket, really, even though they're not spelt the same, but the dead are charged back to life. So it's civil, and administrative is a different jurisdiction. So you need to know how to use your paperwork to procedure and accept and discharge the presentments that they give you, accept them for value, return them for value. Trust correction is a big key part. As we are bankrupt, America and most Commonwealth states are insolvent. There is no gold backing any of the Federal Reserve notes, the central bank notes. So as we're all in debt, how can we then pay debts, a charge, with debt notes? You're paying a debt with a debt. So if we are the creditor, the principality of the source of energy, the prints, you've got thumbprints, the print that you use as a seal for the autograph and thumbprint on some documents to make it authored. We are the prints, the principality. The birth certificates are given to us to use as an insurance policy. If you hold it up to the light, you will see that there is a watermark through the birth certificate or the certificate of birth. Here in the UK, the UK is a paper-based format, but commercially it exists only on paper. But UK policy and rules, regulations, they have the birth certificate, which has a watermark through it. Banks and bonds have a watermark through it. Federal Reserve central bank notes have watermarks through them. That's not to denote authenticity. That's to denote a charge, a current, the currency. The water has the current. The current in nature. The banks hold the river. The river is the flow. In cities, the banks hold the money, and the cash is the flow. The cash has the currency, the watermark through it. Is it legal tender? Is it currency? So these civil administrative areas that we look at for estate management, debt, and that we can articulate a lot of this very, very well now. With regards to, central banks, Federal Reserve, Bank of England, civil administrative charges, they can be discharged. You can't pay them with your sweat equity for the surety to the debt. So we have to point certain things out. We require full disclosure. We conditionally accept the charges, and we correct the trusts, and we put the liability back on the claimant. If we have to quote hundreds of years old bills and bills of exchange acts and certain things like that, we do, and we point it out, and we put it on the chief executive of that company, the chief financial officer of that company, the chief operating officer of that company, and we conditionally accept. They may give you instrumentation that you can look at to prove there that it's a statement. So they say, have you paid the bill? Well, was I given a true bill? No, I wasn't. So it's all that kind of stuff. We work it out this way, and we accept it. Crime's different. And if you hurt and harm somebody, you'll need to pay for that. There's not much you can really do about that. If you're a victim of the crime, you need to make sure that you get some remedy and recourse for that. So I'll leave it there, and I hope that explains it.
Yeah, that was actually really, really good. And what it made me realize in the process is that the civil matter has no injured party. There's no loss of property, right? And yet it is the cause of injury and the cause of loss of property. And right, so it's real. There's so many inversions in this world. And just anyway, that's just a little thing I noticed there.
Yeah, and I wanted to just chime in real quick to see if
Sure.
I understand it correctly, because what a lot of people are here for, and what I'm here for, is it seems like there's parasites. So, coming to harm you, you know what I mean? An honorable, lawful man or woman It's just about doing their business. And what happens is this administrative courts are coming in to try to take things like your property, give you charges, do all these different things. And what you're setting people up to do is correct their status, protect their assets that they build through their own labor, like money, taxes, things like that. And so if these administrative people with no authority to come and take your stuff, unless you agree to that, you can keep your wealth, deny any kind of parasitical thing. Like Mark Patelic will just talk about like keeping the parasites at bay, right? They're always just coming, and you get a little further ahead, and then all of a sudden here's this charge for something, whether it's a land tax or whatever the case is, and you're like, holy smokes. And so do I understand it correctly that what you want to do overall is correct your status so you don't have to pay unnecessary fines or bills or charges that are not yours to pay, and then protect your assets in a trust so that if you do accumulate wealth through your hard work, you could keep it within your family that they don't get access to, and then also you can pass it down, the land and the real estate and the things you acquire. And so that's kind of how I understand it. Is that what you're teaching essentially?
Yeah, we're multifaceted, Matthew, with what we teach, and it starts off with knowing yourself, knowing your language, and learning about the courts, learning about the positions there, and property. If you're going to claim access to property or title to property, then you've got to look at when you register. When we talk about the young bloods, the sons and daughters, they're registered. We look at the word register, we look at the etymological root references of regi, regina, registar, registra, star, and regi comes from regina. So we give the title rights up if there is if there's not any full disclosure with regards to passing over and exchanging and transfer of title rights. The pair that rent, parents, the two that rent the property. So what we unwittingly do, all of us, I'm not here to call names, this is reality. You are transferring title rights. The ones at the top, mum and dad, are at the grantor, the settlors of the property. Baby would be the beneficiary, and we would make the state the trustee. What happens is that's how it should be from when you're born of the waters of your mum. But as you're delivered and in a delivery room, and you're then registered, products are delivered in a delivery room, you've got a docked oar. The docked oar is something you use to row again. Docked and a docked oar. Birth, ships are birthed. I'm digressing, but I'll get back to the point. Bear with me. We go on a little journey again. I can't help it. Everybody learns differently, but you need to hear these words being said and these phrases that come out. So you are in the age of innocence when you are born by the waters of your mum, or birthed legally in the delivery room by the doctor. And then at the point of registration, they then create a bit of paper, which is the birth certificate. And over here, an Anglo terra firma, the bondsman for the state, which is the general registry office, they then take the details and make an entry in a book, and title rights are transferred. They say it's not, but so why do we need registry then? Ever since 1066 and the Doomsday Book, onwards from there with land and land tenure, and I can go on about the areas that I've learned. So they say, it's just a normal process, but it really doesn't seem to be a normal process, registration in itself, because we can articulate the words and the books and what we've looked at, and other thought leaders that have pointed us to this direction. And so title rights are handed over. And houses and cars are one thing, and antiques and property in that respect. But the main issue is looking after the title rights to your sons and daughters, our sons and daughters. As I mentioned at the beginning, that's why I got into this. And you've transferred over title rights. So you go from grantor at the top, and the little one would be the beneficiary. You would have the state as the trustee, or the church could be. The parish used to be the trustee before governments. The church would be the trustee in that respect. Mum and dad, settlor, and baby, family, beneficiaries of that. As I said about the creator, Christians, and the church, the many types of trusts running simultaneously, all parallel to one another. So once you've registered, you've transferred title rights, and at law, you would need to say that you've got access, allodial access to the full access to title rights to property. You've got to prove that. If you can't prove that your property is yours, then you're in trouble. And how do you do that at law? You know, you've got to have deeds to land, deeds to property, receipts and things like that aren't very well. They kind of work, but there's a better way of doing it. If you're listed and there's private trust set up, a last will and testament, and you've put documents in with that, that will protect it all the more better. If you've then also assigned powers of attorney for yourself, if you get taken away, I get taken away for whatever, and then my family's left and I haven't done any paperwork, the state will come in and look after my family and take my property. But if I assign such things as powers of attorney, so if ever, even if I'm not taken away, if I get a knock on the head and I'm not able to recall who I am or any memory for a couple of years, what happens to me? The state will come in and look after me. But if I've assigned some powers of attorney and written down my wishes and my requirements and said that I appoint an executor to my estate, and that executor will be given rights and title over my property and trustee in the matters while ever I'm not around. Much like when people went to war, the knights going to war, they'd appoint the esquire to look after the property, you know, so they have the title rights to the property. The property's not theirs, they don't own it, but they're given authority to use it. So then that protected it from anybody looting the knight's house while he went out to go and wage war and convert them to Christianity or die by the sword, kind of a thing. The Crusades will say, and such things. So there are mechanisms set in place that can protect last will and testament, private trust. You use a trust every day. Babysitters, you know, your mum and dad want to go out, the little ones are in the house, you ring up an uncle, an auntie, someone that you know that you trust with your life, yeah, generally, and you get them to come round. You agree they'll look after the sons and daughters, the family. You go out. So there's a trust there. You're the settlors of the trust. You've created it, you've expressed it to the babysitter, the babysitter's agreed. They look after the children are the beneficiaries. A very simple lawful trust, no courts, no paperwork, and it's done by man for man. That's why I said at the beginning, and I gave that introduction that I did, so there's different forms, so you understand later when we discuss what we're discussing, how I can parallel them to, and you know, it's kind of simple like that. So you've got to change your status, standing and capacity. That's simply done with paperwork and not anything too complicated, but you would use Bible references. Wherever two or more are present, then I am there with them. And whenever two or more men are gathered in my name, I am there with them. So that's quoted. I'm not here to religiously quote, but there is such things in the scriptures that tell you, you know, and as it's witnesses to a fact, then that can be proven, you know, quite amicably. A last will and testament doesn't really need to be going to a court or to any particular office or to an attorney or to a solicitor or any counsel. As long as it's clear that it's a last will and testament, and as long as it's witnessed correctly, fam, then you've protected all of your stuff in property and titles and rights, and you've assigned beneficiaries, you've got a trustee as an executive to carry out your wishes, then that property and title rights to it are now protected in an irrevocable trust. Bosh, that's one thing. They should have taught us this when we was little, but they didn't. So they can come in and steal our, you know, possessions because we give the gold away. When we give the gold away, then when the bankers asked for the debts to be repaid by the monarchy and they ran out of gold and silver, they turned us into gold bars and silver bars, and our surety and sweat equity and tax and income tax and inheritance tax and seizure of property and mortgages and houses and cars feeds the system, because there's no what we call intrinsic value anymore. There's nothing backing anything. It's a make-believe systems. The foundations are dark and negative. Due process of law, it seems to be a metaphysical cover phrase for legal concepts such as corporations, which are basically property rights, including the crown. Everything is a corporation. Data, you know, is what they're after now, if you've not noticed. And these corpses are supernatural entities which do not have verifiable existences of any kind, except to the eyes of a particular faith. And rules of law which reference these legal concepts are nothing but theorems. So jurisprudence is a special branch of the science of transcendental nonsense, is what I would put it there. It's a cult reference from the Cabal courts that are religious temples of such cults. You know, when Jesus spoke the truth to his accusers, he would justify himself by quoting law. First, he would quote God's law, and after quoting God's law, he would then often quote the accuser's law and use that against them as well. For example, Jesus would say, "Did you never read in the scriptures?" and then quotes God's law to them. So this you see the paradigms and the depths of the passages and the chapters and the verses. So as two witnesses written in the Bible, well, I won't give you the chapter and verse yet, but two witnesses at law in a court make a fact, and they've mirrored the Bible into their system to try to make it, we can find no fault with Jesus, but we crucified him anyway, was what one of the Caesars said. And that was called the clean hands doctrine. And again, we have a clean hands doctrine. Those that, seek equity and equitable remedy must come to it with clean hands. There are 20 maxims of equity, legal equity, that we use to kick the legal society's asses with their 10 commercial maxims, axioms, and precepts there. So it's a simple setup of changing. It's called probate when you go to court, which is why you have a pro se cutor, and pro is for, se is of, and cutor is skin. Paraphrasing, when pro se and cuticle, cuter is from the skin. The bulla papilla, or the papal bulls that have been mentioned about the Vaticano City, and what those 1302 proclamations they claimed publicly. The Catholic Church proclaimed property rights, titles, and nobody contested it. So that's how they've got all of this system running. You have to stand up and protest and be a Protestant, a Protestant. I'm not saying you need to be that faith. I'm not having to go there, but there are certain things in a courtroom at play. If you haven't got a will and you can't prove yourself, then you're in what's called intestate, and intestate, and you're in a public legal position, and we go in a private lawful protected position, and we've got certain elements to move you from that public legal person to a private lawful man. And as I keep saying, paperwork will be what precedes you, and having witnesses and certain things in place in your house in order, you see. So that's the law, and that we are the law. When mum gives, back to the delivery room, when mum is giving baby life and you're being delivered, by the waters of mum, what does the hospital midwife say? Baby is crowning. So all of us from the top, when the head comes out first from mum, we are crowned by mum. So that's how we're all princes to the kingdom, and have the rights to say that, because whether you're Islamic, whether you're from Judea, whether you're Rastafari, not so much the Anabaptists, I'm afraid, but most of the religions and faiths are all covered, and we are crowned, and we are all kings and princesses of the kingdom of heaven. And it's within, when you realize whom and what you are, where you are, when you are. And we promote what's called a universal non-sectarian remedy for all, whereby we all proclaim the world's resources, our common heritage again. And that's for the three main Abrahamic faiths and Abraham and so forth, which is quite easily done. And it's for all the other faiths and religions as well. And using what I've told you, and it needs a cognizance of us all coming together, like what you guys are trying to do, and getting us all to have a chat and see if others can add little bits to make it, a stronger. The armor of God, as written in Ephesians, is what we're putting on right now. I yield.
Wow, this is amazing. Hey, Matt, I'm just actually totally blown away, loving this so much.
Well,
Go ahead.
etymology is like the root, right? It's like getting to the root of everything, and that's what David's mastery is, and it's very important. And it's to understand. Like, I remember at the beginning of this, I went to school for law and security, and I learned that what you think is English is not the same in a courtroom. I'm like, what the heck do you mean? What are they speaking then? And it's so deceptive. And to me, that's why it's Luciferian, because they're deliberately trying to deceive so they can take everything from you. A normal good person does not think like that. And so, now we have this awakening for people to say, holy smokes, this system is really harming us. And they're taking our hard work, they're taking our property, but now they're coming after our children. And that's why I feel like a lot more people are really taking it upon themselves to learn what's going on so they can stand in their power. And that's what we need. We need to regain and understand our power and understand the system, and then hold those accountable who need to be held accountable, and then also just protect ourselves and help other people. Once we can do that for ourselves, you know, we can do it for our friends as well.
For sure. And if I could jump in with a couple of questions around, unless there's anything you want to respond to about that, but there's a couple of words. You said jurisdiction 3 times, so I'm very curious what the background of that word is, and you know, anything that you want to share about it. Also, the word trust, because you know, in our plain day language, that means that, you know, I trust my creator to provide. I trust my parent to make wise decisions for me. I trust myself in situations when I get into difficulties that I'm going to know what to do. So that's sort of like the more mundane meaning of trust. But then this other side of it, is it related, and where does that word come from? So those two I'd love you to cover if you could.
Yeah, 3 is the magic number. 3 is the Trinity. So that's why there's 3 jurisdictions. They get 3 chances, and 3 is just I need to repeat it, because if you're not in the correct jurisdiction, its jurisdiction is important. Who has jurisdiction? Where juris, corpus juris, corpus body, you know, juris, jure in itself. De jure, you know, it's just jure, and jurisdiction is important for all to know. And 3, they normally get 3 chances. 3 is the important number there. Trust is man's one true currency. Money is not money. It's fictional. It's the New World Order. Legal system is the undoing, you know, of God's law. We was given commandments back in the day. Allegedly, they were written, and you know. When the prophet come down from Mount Sinai and saw that his people were worshipping bulls, he was the first man to break those stone tablets, to break the law, literally, you know. So trust is broken many times by government, by bankers, by many in the public commercial, and it's broken privately by family members, by blood as well. So trust is our one true currency. My word is my bond. Never mind your paper bonds and your whatever they are, you know, you denote denominations of currency. Church faiths have denominations. Churches have denominations in them. $5, $10, $20 bills, $50 bills are denominations of money. Denominations of, we've put trust in false idols. We've put trust in fictional things that we shouldn't have. We've well, let me say something such as. Let me just think now that a leader can only compromise himself so many times before he loses the faith of his flock. So do not follow the wrong shepherd. And we've been led astray somewhat. Jeremiah, is it 50, chapter verse 6, King James, my people, you are my people, our family, have been lost sheep, and their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their fold or their resting place. So this is why we need to remember, you know, trust, currency, what it is. We help one another, private management, private guardian, asset protection, management, private education. I'm sovereign, I'm self-governing, I'm self-interested, I'm self-repairing, I'm self-interested, I'm self-educated, because the academics didn't teach me any of this. The indoctrination camps didn't teach me any of this. My barrister didn't teach me any of this, and I paid them 20 grand in 2 years. So what's happening? The public has got liabilities. The public is not to be trusted in many ways. The church, they're guilty. They've kept a lot from us and kept the truth from us in many ways. Our one true currency is trust, and our wealth, our diamonds, our gold bars are our sons and daughters. The blood, this planet's wealth is the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the kingdom of man. And the kingdom of man is how he treats his blood. You know, to judge a civilization is deemed to see how well a civilization is doing. You would look to see how well they look after one another, how well they you know, get on with one another. And if you was to look at us from a perspective of above, you know, you wouldn't have a great, you know, opinion of us. Starvation all over, you know, neglect, war, killings, what we allow to say we say we're civilized is a joke, and we're expecting somebody to come down from on high to sort all our problems out that we've created through our own ignorance. And I'm not saying anybody's guilty, and I'm not blaming it on any Christians or any particular faith. It's all of our problems, and it's all of our issue. And it's all of that's why we're here and we're doing this now, and why I'm giving up time, all of my life's work, the publications, 95% is given away for free, because there's no point putting it behind a paywall, and it's because things won't change if people don't get the knowledge, the information, the insight, and the proof of claim, and the interpretations of such things in here about I and my Father are one. And if you go to the 10th chapter of St. John, verse 30, there's a passage where Jesus says, I and the Father are one. So I must need to get some little bits out to show that, to the Christians, that they've missed some things. The good news of the gospel, the good news is that you are the same as the Father. I don't think that I'm sovereign and above anybody. You, Beth and Matthew, are the Father if you so choose to be. I'm actually a Hermeticist, and I read the Kabbalion and the Hermeticum, the Hermetica, the Corpus Hermetica, and I'm more of a spiritual man. I look at the Bible because we're in a Christian nation, and we're in a Christian monarchy and so forth, and that's the way the legal system works. I'm not here to say I'm a full-blood Christian, but there is Christianity before the church. I've got a brief thing about how the church was formed, and I'll get into that before we finish, but it's also written in the 82nd Psalm, it's written in law that Jesus said that we are gods. He was quoting, for those that want to look it up, the 82nd Psalm. Is it not written in your law? I said, you are gods. If God called them, those to whom he gave his word, gods, and you cannot deny the scriptures, how can you say that I, David, here today blaspheme because I say I am sovereign and a son of God? Maybe a child to be, but that's how it's written in the scriptures. I'm not an adult, because adulterer is where adult links to when we're talking about children and property and things. So you need to have a look there and just have a think. There's clues. I look at the King James Bible and the Bibles themselves as a codified handbook to understand the zodiac and to understand title rights to property. Lord God is a split title. You have split titles in trusts. There's a lot of clues and parallels when you get into it, and you're like, oh, how did I miss this? Or epiphanies that just appear, and you're like, oh, we're getting close. We are very close. And I'm going to yield there.
That's excellent. I love it. And the word trust also, is it not based on truth, right? That the word true it seems to be in there.
Well, yes, you can't lie to somebody. You've got to be honourable, and you've got to come, with honour. So true, trust, trust. It's very similar, yeah. The parallels are there, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Anyway, sorry, I'm obsessed with that because I've got a client that's building a trust network, and I just keep going back and forth because so many people have issues with trust. They can't trust their anybody because they got betrayed as a child, and that really is a child kind of a position to be in, where we're always looking for someone to trust and not turning direct towards Creator and having that confidence in ourselves to know the truth for ourselves, right? We're always wanting a middleman. It's the teacher, the government, the authority, someone to uphold the truth. And I suspect that is our job, that we cannot pass that off to anyone. I'm also very curious about the word sovereign, especially because you have it on your t-shirt there, and there can be some debate around it. Like you even just said that sovereign can be defined, or is defined, I think, I'm not sure which dictionary, but it's wanting to have dominion over others, right? So they call the queen a sovereign, but then should we be calling ourselves sovereign? Since you have it on your t-shirt, I have to assume the answer is yes to that.
Well, it's the Queen in her capacity isn't quite so much a sovereign as what you would expect, because you can only be sovereignty, and what sovereignty is all about is down to an opinion. You can't be in a public legal capacity as QE2. Queen Elizabeth II is not the woman herself. That's her personam, and that's a person. That's a legal corporation. So as God is no respecter of persons, how can a person claim a sovereign title? It can't be done. It's a joke. So I am the authorized representative of my person, and I come with Christ, with a Christ-like consciousness. So if there is, the Jesus Christ parable there, and, I go before the Christianity, because Confucius, thousands of years before Christ was born, if he was actually a real man, on the earth, he was the one that wrote in his parables, Confucius's ancient Chinese Asian, philosopher of time. Do unto others as you want done unto yourself. We can prove the pre-Christian cross. We can prove the methodology of Christianity and sovereignty well before Jesus, well before the Catholic Church, well before Christianity. And Christianity have taken connotations of civilizations before them, and probably lands that they've conquered, and really written their history when they've codified the canonization of the New Testament, and they've claimed certain positions and titles, the shadow of Christ himself, and of God, the Messiah, the Savior. So I come with Jesus, and I come with a Christ-like consciousness, which is love and respect. And I am a sovereign, self-governing. If you look into the etymological roots of sovereignty and what sovereign means, sovereign, souverain is another way of spelling it internationally, and from Romanian and Sweden, Suveran, I think. But I come as an ambassador, as a bondsman and witness for Christ Jesus, and, the Lord and Savior, the King of Kings, the sovereign master, Lord of Lords, and Prince of Peace, and advocate and surety that I put onto the email that you may have seen on the footer there. So that's my actual true sign off with regards to my intent. So I don't think that Parliament, we have heard referenced in the news that Parliament claims sovereignty, but you can't be a ward of the state, steward and ward, warden, a warden, as such, a war and a den. If you look at that, WARDEN, a den of thieves, a warden. So you can't be in that status. It's like oxymoronic again. She can't be sovereign and allow the system to be at hand that she's got, the deception of the legalese, deception of the language, the bankruptcy, the surety, the civil issues that are going off at hand right now, and for the Queen to sit there and for her to allow this by her, because it's her government over here on this Anglican soil, so she's not sovereign. I would argue that Parliament aren't sovereign, and to know yourself, as Plato, Socrates, Iliad of Homer, and certain other things are written there, you will know how to be authentic. Is a similar word, flesh and blood, authentic man. There you go. You don't have to use sovereign. You can be a child of the Creator and a man of the realm in your private, authentic being. Whatever you want to put it as, but sovereignty, when I say about the 10 commercial maxims of law, there is workman is worthy of his hire, number 1. Number 2, all are equal under the law. Number 3, this is one of the most comforting maxims one could have, and your foundation for the peace of mind and your security and your capacity to win and triumph, to get your remedy in this business. Remember, it's a business, it's seldom, law. In commerce, truth is sovereign. That comes from Exodus chapter 20, verse 16. Comes from Psalms 117, 2. Comes from John 8, 32. It comes from the 2 Corinthians 13.8. Truth is sovereign, and the sovereign tells only the truth. So just bear with me, because this is why I've done this, because people actually need to know what I'm backing up and where it is written in certain scriptures. It won't take me long, because I've actually prepared for it. So you go to your book and you check. It's 2 Corinthians 13.8. So then I get the King James, various Bibles, 2 Corinthians 13, and number 8. And it's, you've got That's 1 Corinthians. Yeah, you've got the passages, and you can reference them. I haven't done this specifically to make people, angry about that. So that's what you've got, the chapters and verses that I've said in Psalms and John and so forth. So if you're gonna argue with the good word of the Messiah, and not you, Beth, I'm just saying, but anybody, it's not just about I'm wearing a t-shirt and I think it. I actually know, because it is written there, and that's a codified handbook. So that this Bible is actually got with the Old and the New Testament in there, and it's got the King James. I don't know how well it's going to come up on there, but it's got the why have we red letter version? So it's got the actual words from the man himself. It's got the Old Testament references, the books of the Old Testament, the books of the New Testament. And remember, I'm into Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus. I'm into the pre-Christian gnosis. I'm into antiquities for my real mysticism, which is history. And then you go through. And that's why I say the first book of Moses, Genesis, because that's exactly how it's written. And that's where the first trust is given for an example. So if I need to demonstrate sovereignty, that's how I do that. Then there's the accompanying apocrypha that comes with that, with the scriptures. Then I look at the Holy Rig Vedas. Then I look at the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita. Then I go over to Asia and look at the Japanese Shinto. Then I go to China and look at the Buddhist sutras, and they've all got the same story. And they're all telling you, and it's like, hang on a minute now, it's not that hard to work out, surely, it's repeated across continents. Egyptians, Akhenaten, Aten, Apep, Ra, the sun god, Anubis after death, the feather weighing, feather is father, the heart, the feather, the heart, that's sovereignty. It's written everywhere. It's not hard to work out. And if nobody wants to be sovereign, then just be an authentic flesh and blood child of the Creator and know that you have a divine connection to source. And like the quantum sciences that we found out about, there is a way of praying. What you inwardly project, you outwardly attract. And this is all about the law of attraction, the secret, that you need to pay thousands. It's not a secret anymore, is it? You've got to maintain that vibration, that inner love. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. If you can't vibrate at a decent, I command the universe now, on a quantum, ethereal, subatomic, atomic, and I pray and ask, and I do that. I like stand up, or when I'm walking, I'm making affirmations and saying to the universe, looking at the stars, whatever it is, and I'm saying, are we all right? And sometimes I get all of the moments in time, I get like the spikiness of certain things when I'm writing, and I have a little moment, I'm like, ooh, the spirit or whatever it is, the connection to source. I don't have to go and see a priest and wait in line or confess. I don't need permission to access the higher self of David, the universal consciousness. And there's many scientific ways of looking at this on a quantum subatomic level as well. So sovereignty, all of that there.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just loving this. I think it's so good. It's so enlightening somewhere. I don't even know what part of myself. I'm hearing the words, and I feel very fortunate to have talked to you now rather than at the beginning of my law studies, because I feel like I'm actually understanding, most of what you're saying. So it's really beautiful. It's a transmission that we're able to give each other of energy and information. That combination that I talked about before. So Matt, where would you like to go from here? I've been kind of saying all the questions. Is there anything specific that you'd like to ask about?
Well, I think there's a lot of places we could go, but I'd just love to ask David. I know he prepared a little bit. I don't know if he covered everything in there, or if there's something in particular that you wanted to share, David. But I think it's all relevant, getting people to understand what a trust is in trust law, coming back to the understanding that you are, a man or woman under God, and it's interesting to just see all of the teachers. It comes back to spirituality, knowing who you are under the creating, being a good and honorable person, and knowing that the the forces against us that seem tyrannical and terrifying, they don't have any power once we understand their system. And so we need to take it upon ourselves to ensure we have that understanding so we can stand strong if we're tested, and then we can, be that support for other people. So it's still, for me, like I'm understanding where he's coming from, and then I'm like, okay, I got to keep going so I understand more and more and more, so I get my paperwork in order, or what actions do I do, or how do I apply this in the real world situation, whether it's coming after my property, which would be my daughter, which I think is okay to say, or in a circumstance where they're trying to fine you, tax you, charge you, or whatever. Just be ready for that scenario. So I'll just go back to David if there's anything that he thinks that you want to cover.
Yeah, that's key and important. Thank you, Matthew, for that. So law in itself, LAW, is land, air, water. It could be. It's not written, but say law, land, air, water. You look at the land, what the common law of the land is. The water, admiralty and maritime, and the air has got the holy seas in it. The seas is where the holy seas is where the trust law would reside. So land, common law, water, admiralty, maritime. And the air has got the trust law in it, the seas, the Papa seas, the paper seas, the current seas. There's lots of seas of commerce, Caesar, Julius Caesar couldn't find no fault with Jesus, but they crucified him anyway. And crucifixion, cruce is cross, crucifixion, C is of, and fiction is fiction. So it takes a lot for the consciousness and the Christians and the freemans and others to look at. But you can command a private lawful trust. The simplest one to put in is the last will and testament. Look in your own land masses about last will and testament. Look at a will, look at probate, look at interstate, look at a will, a testator. So somebody that makes a will is a testator. Someone that makes a trust is a trustor. These words all end with or. Settlor, trustor, testator. They're the top positions that make that happen. Wherever a trust is formed, mankind consciousness uses his will. The temples, you're at the temple and you're having a think and you're contemplating, and you want to express your love and protection required, and you're not going to be here forever, so you want to express your will. Your will is to form a trust out of love for your children, your sons and daughters, your procreation. So you would then simply, I'll give you one for free. You know what I mean? We give it away for free for the 12 promises that we ask you to consider paying, which is about $15, $17 or thereabouts in euros for 1 year as well. It works out as 25 pence a week. You can get access to us. We go live every 2 weeks, me and Kevin, my right-hand man. And we take open questions. We've got forums, we've got documents. I think Chris, he didn't show Rice TV, all of it, because it's private, so we can't come in the public and show it you. But there's enough there to get you going for what you invest, and then we'll give you the basics. The power of attorney, you need to assign that, because that, if you're not married, see, the thing is with a will only comes into effect when man takes the terminal breath, the mortal time happens and you pass on, then that is, used. So in the meantime, like I said earlier in the chat, if you're deemed non-compos mentis, incapable, or you're taken away from your family, who's going to step in to your shoes, or to Beth's shoes, or to my shoes? We need somebody there. So that power of attorney, there are various forms of power of attorney, and it's different terminology on different land masses to different states and governments and, English across the world. So I can't be generic as much as I want to be, but I can give you the rough ballpark area. So alongside a last will and testament, it'll cost you £20, maximum £100. You've paid too much if you've paid £100, really, because it can be done privately, as long as it makes out it's a last will and testament, and it's got the instructions on there, and it's got witnesses to the fact, and wherever two or more are gathered in a legal system, it's all over the world from London, so it's crown copyright and it works in 90%. You don't need anything too technical. You express that as a testator, you put your property into that. You can only put property into that trust. Any trust is, even if it's a private trust or a different type of trust, you can only put property in that you can prove you've got the title rights to. You can't just go, I'm not saying this directly to you two, but I'm just saying to the viewers that you can only lock down property that you can prove at law. You must have the deed to it, you must have the access title rights to it, and if you can prove that at law, then stick it in a trust as a res and assign a beneficiary and a trustee, and we'll help you. If you need more help, I'll gladly come back and bring a constructive little bit of information for you, and you can go away and research and then come back to me with questions about that. We have dedicated forums for this in our private domain. We have a public chat on Facebook, which is open and free, and we have the Telegram weekly chat on a Wednesday every week for you to come in and ask. So we don't hide. We're easily accessible. We do this day in, day out. We live and breathe it, and we give it away for free, because now is the time. When you're talking a little bit more technical on other trusts, revocable living trust or an irrevocable, most trusts that are set up as irrevocable trusts, unless you specify they're revocable, revocable. So you need to look and do some research on that itself. These are legal trusts. There are ecclesiastical ones at play, which is the leading, what I've mentioned, some areas of the church, the 1302, and if you look at the Sovereign Masters Guild downloads, you'll see the proclamations that they've made. Convocation, Eterni Regis, that's where the Regis, the Regi, Regina, Registrar, registration come from. When I said the court are looking for 3 jurisdictions and they want the personal jurisdiction, which is why they ask for the person to be present. Give me your name. These are all listed in history. This isn't, so much hokum or freeman or common law or sovereign citizen madness. It's real life, all right, and we can articulate this. And others, Jordan Maxwell's done it, Batch's done it, Franco Collins has done it, and now Sovereign Giaramita's doing it, and so are you. So it's just a repetition till we all get on the same flow here: legal, lawful, ecclesiastical, and Abrahamic. And you pick which one to suit. Private property are assets. Public property is property, and property is legally liable to be claimed under orders, taking control of goods orders. Remember, goods go to market. We don't have goods. Our children are our property. Well, they're in danger then, because property, as I've said, is a public liability. So what do we do about the children, the sons and the daughters? We do clever things with them. We call them by their callings. We use, you notice, syntax there. I'm not a supporter of David Windmiller and Russell J. Gould's quantum parse syntax, scientific madness, copyrighted, exclusive. Syntax works. It's English syntax. It's English linguistics and grammar. Noam Chomsky wrote a book in the 60s called Syntactic Structures. It's not anything new. All that WM and RJG did was capitalize on capturing flags and making themselves I'm not here to besmirch them, especially of a man that's no longer on this earth and has passed away. I will not speak ill of the dead, but what I am here to say is, anybody wondering about the full colon, lowercase, and all of that you see there, I've added an E on to Jason. I've split Jason up. I've used lowercase, hyphens and colons. We've looked at linguistics. This teach syntax in English school. It's not secret science, and it's not complicated. So protection in written format, and looking at the Youngbloods and titles, full disclosure from the Attorney General, from the Lords, not the Lords, the ministers in office, from the Registrar Generals. And if they give you writing back letting you know that the birth certificate is not a bonded instrument and it's simply a form of registration and there's nothing to worry about, then they won't mind us doing certain things that we do in the private to protect our assets and blood and put them into trusts themselves. To recap, we went to Liverpool some years ago, the trust, I and a man called Andrew. there was an international news story with a family called the Evanses and Alfie Evans at a Liverpool hospital in Alderhay. You don't expect you to have heard of this, but others in England will recall it. We went down there because the family of Alfie Evans, Thomas Evans and Sarah Evans, the mum and dad, got a hold of what we do, and they said, the hospital will not allow us access to our baby. The hospital have got the dad by defraud to sign a section order to stop him going near Alfie, the baby. We want you to come down and help out. So we did. We took a 170-mile one-way trip that took several hours to go down to meet some strangers at a Liverpool hospital in England. It's quite traumatic and awful what happened there, but if you research Alfie Evans and Alderhay Liverpool scandal, there was things going off with mum and dad, and the hospital had called the police in. They put the mum and dad under orders, and they weren't letting them near the baby, and they were having their way with the baby with regards to medical treatment, in a nutshell. So we turned up there, myself and Andrew, representatives, ambassadors, witness, etc. The word, the father had sent us to go and protect one of our children. Here's the spikes, look, see, and I'll tell you, there's certain moments when, what are you saying, Beth?
I got the spikes too.
Oh,
exactly the same time. I know I've got goosebumps all over. Yeah.
There was a padre there, man in black, and we had to speak to him, and we went there suited and booted, and we said, hello there, we need to have a word, please. We've come on behalf of the father, Thomas Evans, and the mum, Sarah Evans. And he said, who are you? He was probably a priest, not a padre. He was more of a priest. He was very tall, quite tanned, Italiano, dressed all in black with his little, white, the collar there. And we said, the father above sent us. We need to get this baby out, and we've come to we want you to grant us the rites of passage for the baby via the holy seas. And he drained. He went completely white, and he was like, we weren't expecting that at 11:30 p.m. at night time, and all the police were there. There was news media out the front. There was people from common law, people from Constitution, people from Magna Carta movements, all there. And none of them had thought to go up to the main man, the businessman. Why is he there? Why is there a priest there dressed in black? What's his job? And we happened to catch him outside. We got on the phone. Another man called Stephen helped us and told him what we was doing and what we required, and we want to get hold of the family to get the birth certificate, to put that into a trust to protect the title rights, because whoever holds that certificate has got the legal title rights to that property. So the title rights are not possessory rights, so we needed to do some quick messing around, administration, messing around with the priest. He got on the phone and he rang the consulate or somewhere, whoever he needed to ring, and he spoke Italian for about 10 minutes, and he come back and he said, no, the father will not allow me to give you rites of passage through the holy seas for the baby. He said he won't allow it. And I'm like, no way, we've done all of this, and we didn't even get to speak to the mum and the dad. But he knew what we said. He knew that we meant business, and he drained from his colour, from his head to toe, and he went and spoke Italian to, I presume it was a consulate or some concierge of some kind. And what we proposed to do was valid and right, and this is the access rights to title. And we said we want to get the birth certificate off the parents, and we'll be putting it into a private trust, and we'll be taking title rights away from, and we'll be protecting it. So that was an emotional time of which we got called, and the mum and dad had, for whatever reason, going to the High Court arguing for access to. So anybody that thinks, oh, it's not real, David, I don't even smoke cannabis. I don't drink alcohol. I'm not a saint, but I've long gone are them days. I'm 43. I'm born 78. Time is of clarity and precision. Why was it the High Court wouldn't listen to the mum and dad? Why did the High Court give the hospital permission to do certain things against mum and dad's? It's in history. It's in English history. It happened. Okay, we attended that event. Why did the police stop the mum and dad from seeing that baby? Who has the power? Where does the implied authority? So this is a real situation where mum and dad can get ordered through no fault of their own by the state, and the hospitals and the police overrun. And the priest was there. He was the only one that had the power to sort this out. And when we asked him and commanded him and wished upon him, we said, yeah, it don't matter about that man in the office in Italy or wherever you've just rung. You're being judged by the consciousness. I'm not going to say, just the creator is watching, the father's watching you, not that father, that one, are you not? We gave him the chance to go and take us in, and we were ready. The boys were ready to go and sort it out, and we got denied. He bottled it, and the courts had the way. The baby passed away some weeks later. So it needs doing. You need to correct status, standing, and capacity, and even if it's just a freedom of information request or a data subject access request from your local office, your local minister, your secretary of state, your home office, your registry places, and ask them for full disclosure on the birth certificate, because any agreement that you sign with full public liability and not retention of rights, then you've afforded and transferred title rights. But as you said, Beth, trust and truth. If you don't know the truth about what you've done, then how can that be, in any man's eyes, lawfully correct, honourable, legal, lawful, right in front of anything? If you find out later on that you've signed something and you've been conned, then what you've signed doesn't stand. So that's how we argue this, and that's why we go into the areas that we've gone into during this 2 hours nearly that I've been chatting to you, to get them to listen and to hold them to account. We've had to do all of this, going back to Matt's question. People that want to get into this, how do they go about it? Come and have a chat with us and we'll help you. We'll try to anyway. I yield.
Very emotional. I was hoping for a different end to that story. I'm sure you were too, Matt. And that's why we're here right now doing what we're doing. Wow, this has been enlightening, David. I don't know about Matt, but no doubt we would like to speak with you more. You have a lot to offer, and in the meantime, people should definitely visit the website splspro.com. And as David mentioned, for a very small fee, for an annual fee of about $17 or however many 12 pounds is in your dollars, you can get some guidance, and there's a lot of you out there. I'm so grateful that people have come forward in this past year, seeing right that the it's getting too far, and they're forcing their hand. It's time for us to stand in a way that we likely, personally, I never felt I would be called to, but here I am, and here we are, and I thank you, David, for everything that you are doing and offering to people.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm happy to be part of the family. I'm honoured and privileged, and I hope I haven't gone off on too many tangents. I'm known to do that, and I try to control myself and keep it relevant. So thank you both. Much love. It's been excellent.
That was really important. And the ending story of just what's possible, the state controlling your children. It's like the most horrific thing that you could ever imagine for, a new parent to go through. And it's important for people to understand what is going on and what they're consenting to and what they're contracting with and how to revoke those. And so I'm just grateful that you have created a pathway that we can walk through. It's still going to take some time and effort to go through and sort it out and take that accountability and ownership. It's like, I can train somebody in martial arts, but I can't do the work for you. I can give you a really quick path to being efficient and being good, but you still need to show up and do the work. And you've kind of laid out a very important path for people who are willing to do the work. So just thank you for what you're doing. And the more of us that engage in this, take accountability and learn, the better off we're all going to be, and the quicker we kind of shift this tide. So thanks for laying the groundwork for us.
You're very welcome. It's my honor and privilege. We call it a sacred contract, Matthew. It's what we need to do. We're lacking. We're not criminals, any of us. Ignorance is no defense is another one of their legal types of frameworks there. It's not really a maxim, but ignorance of the law is no defense. Well, you sovereigns think you don't have to follow the law. Well, excuse me, there's the law, it's written there, to be fair. And then you've got the pre-Christian gnosis of the faiths that I mentioned when I went all around the world and did the books that I've researched, India, China and so forth, that we do follow the law, and we're very respectful of the law. When you say law to me, could you please clarify what law you are on about. Is it Ecclesia? Is it common law? Because we follow a common law. We follow Abrahamic law to an extent, to what is allowed to be followed, what is practically able to be followed. Admiralty and maritime, uniform commercial codes, contract law, tort law. I could go on and give you a list of 20 laws. So when you all sit there, because there are some that go, but it's real, what we're in here. It's a real massive, multifaceted dimension of, it's not hell on earth. It can be, and you need to pay attention is all we need to do. If you can pay attention, then, we'll get somewhere. That's all it will cost you, a bit of time and input. Without no journey, there can be no destination, and I'll leave it there, yeah? Like a sensei would say to student.
I love it. I love it. Wow, I feel very enlightened by this conversation. Thank you so much, David, for joining us. Thank you to the audience who took the time and the care to understand that they have rights that they might not be exercising, and that we can fly much higher. I tell people pretty much every day so that I hear it. We actually hold all the power. This is not just a, mouth kind of piece, saying words and rah. It's actually the truth. God tells me that we have the power. We need to exercise it, and that's why he or however you want to phrase that unnamed creator can't come and do this for us. It's been done. The job is done. We just have to actually follow through and know it for ourselves. Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, if you're out there watching and you want to go and have some conversations, I know, David, you have an excellent Telegram group. Do you want me to give the address of it, or do you want us to put it in the show notes below, or maybe they need to go through your website first?
No, we have, you can, please. We encourage the family to network and, meet up and come to see us, to have a chat. We're international. We have lots of information for all America. America and England mainly. We can deal with others, but Europe and so forth. But please, we have a public Telegram chat that you're in, that you're aware of, so you can share that. You've done the .com there. I have an Indiglo, I have an account on YouTube which is called Indiglo, but I'm on my second strike. I've got another badge of honor for telling truth, and YouTube have moderated me and said, you've done that twice, and you know how it is. So I'm on a 2-week ban on the account there, but I'll send you the YouTube channel. I have two, one main one and a backup channel. So you share the Telegram. You've done the website. There's a Facebook. If you want to find a Facebook address link for us, go to that domain name, and then the blue F in the corner will take you to our public Facebook trust that Brother Kevin manages. My like I say, my right hand man there. He's a legend. I hope you get to meet him one day as well, because he's taught me an amazing amount as well. So each one is to teach one, and thank you.
Okay, brilliant. And jump on the Choose Freedom Law Summit Telegram group as well. So many good people. Honestly, I'm watching the notifications go by. There's been 100 or more since we've been on this call. And people are getting together. This is very important. When we put our heads together and pool our efforts, yes, we have to do it ourselves, but we don't have to do it alone. So God bless you for that coming together and being part of this community. All right, everyone.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Gosh.
yeah.
Nice one. Bless up. Thank you. I'll speak to you soon then.
See you guys.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.